Hello and welcome to Media Week. I'm Ingrid Willinge. Ahead on the program, why are people asking if the free-to-air TV model is dying? Plus, more significant changes at major media companies this week. And we have our co-host, James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, in the studio with us, as always. But first, the star performer in last week's radio ratings was Southern Cross Stereo's Triple M network. The Sydney station had a good jump in the ratings, and the Grill Team breakfast show is sitting on 7.8%. The Melbourne station is the jewel in the crown, where it has equal first place with a breakfast show that is the clear FM leader. Well, to talk about the stations and their future plans, we're joined now by head of Triple M's network, Mike Fitzpatrick, in the studio with us. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ingrid.
So you had a great result in the ratings last week. Was it the best you've had in your time?
I can't remember. I don't really remember the ratings for ratings. It's always nice to have 4 stations go up and none go down, though. That's always a positive. So, you know, have Triple M, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Adelaide all go up. That's a good result.
Yep.
So it's the 4-station network. Where does Mix sit in the network? Do you consider it one of the...
Mix 94.5 in Perth. Well, yeah, it's part of the network from a sales point of view.
Yes.
Not from a programming point of view. Obviously, it has a different target audience, and Perth is quite a unique market.
And the sound of those stations across the network changed quite a bit. I think particularly Adelaide is a lot different to what you do.
Adelaide's probably the most dramatic, and that's a reflection also of what the rest of the stations in the market are doing. Adelaide's an older market and more conservative, and we've had some success down there with the classic Triple M format, and there's still more to come there as well.
When times haven't been so good in the past, have you thought about potentially changing the brand, changing it up a bit?
Changing Triple M? Changing from Triple M, you mean? What else?
Just changing up the brand a bit, refreshing.
How could you do that? No. We do. We refresh the brands all the time.
You had faith in it.
You know, we've had a couple of brand refreshments. It's been a 35-year journey for Triple M. Certainly when they launched in August 1980 in Sydney as the first Triple M, and Eon in Melbourne. But to change the brand itself, other than in look and feel, you know, we brought back an old logo. We brought back Dr. Dan, the left-handed winged guitar-playing demon from time to time, but never to actually change the name of the radio station. No, it's world famous. We couldn't do that.
OK, so that's a no then, I guess.
OK, clear no.
Emphatic no.
A clear no.
Now, look, the radio space for the older listener seems pretty crowded, maybe more so than used to be, and Smooth's been successful. ARN's got its own sort of gold, I guess, and those classic hit stations are doing quite well.
WS in Sydney's more successful than Gold, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Gold's pretty good in Melbourne, this survey, though. I can understand you don't want to talk it up. Yeah. But, I mean, does that mean it's harder to target younger listeners now? Is there more revenue and more audience in the older people?
I don't know. We certainly don't program Triple M from a demographic point of view. You know, once upon a time we did, and there are still stations that target demographically, you know, 25 to 39-year-olds or 35 to 44-year-olds. Triple M, we program from a psychographic point of view. Well, after men, unashamedly male, and men who are inclined to like rock music, sport and comedy. It doesn't mean they like those 3 things exclusively, but the average male enjoys those three things a lot.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because all your shows are hosted by men.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Most of them. We're not sure about Gus Wallen.
You've had women in the past, though. Of
course we have.
Are you going to have women again? I mean, what's your strategy there? Just men?
Probably. I don't
Is it about the talent? What's it about?
Is it the talent that's available? Or
I don't hire based on gender.
There's no plan, is it, to have all men, I guess?
No, I don't hire based on gender. I hire based on the best person available.
But you find that they work better together, the men in the demographics that you're sort of going to?
Our last #1 breakfast show on Triple M Melbourne was The Cage, which Bridget Duclos was a part of. We had Mika Buchan in the hot breakfast when it started. We had Michelle Anderson in the Grill Team in Brisbane until recently. It's just come to be that the best chemistry and the best teams we could put on air at the moment just happen to be men. In the future, I'm sure they'll include women again. I don't know why they wouldn't. In fact, we have, you know, just because we're a male-targeted radio station doesn't for a second mean that we don't have any women on them. Jane Gazzo was on the air in Melbourne. We also have Jackie Kasolki on the air in Sydney. We have female newsreaders. A lot of our off-air team are female. In fact, there are more females working on Triple M Melbourne's content team off the air than there are in, I think, any other Southern Cross or stereo stations. So women are certainly a part of our plan moving forward, because I don't think you can successfully communicate to men without women, can you, Ingrid?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I want to ask you about Triple M Melbourne. I know listeners to the Hot Breakfast would think Rosie's a pretty integral part of the team down there.
Absolutely.
The regular listeners there.
Rosie's been there from day one, and she is absolutely an integral part of the team. She runs social media for the show, as well as being a contributor on the air, and she panels and technically produces that show as well.
Yeah, I think she pulls some music shifts from time to time.
She does everything,
doesn't she? Now, but tell us about that turnaround of that Melbourne station, because it's a great story from the days when it wasn't doing so well, post The Cage, I guess.
Well, I've been there for both famine and feast. 19 years at Triple M next month, so I've seen the highs and lows. And Triple M Melbourne's success we could attribute to the success of the hot breakfast, as you've just mentioned. Eddie, Mick and Das are a unique team. They have a unique chemistry. But as a whole, we found something that was unique to radio in Melbourne on FM that wasn't being done anywhere, and that's a hyper-local, relevant breakfast show that I believe spoke to an audience that wanted to be informed rather than just entertained. So we do information as well as entertainment. And if there's a big story breaking in Melbourne, then Eddie breaks it. And over 6 years, listeners come to trust us and come to know there's something's happening in Melbourne, you have to listen to Eddie, Mick and Das. And that's really been the #1 key to the success of Triple M Melbourne.
So have you been able to learn from that and take that to other sort of networks around Australia?
Absolutely. So the Triple M network everywhere has that ethos.
Yep.
It's part of our DNA now in our breakfast shows. But each show will differ because there's only one Eddie Maguire and there's only one Mick Malloy. So we design the shows based around the talent that's on air. So each show differs, but the ethos, as I said, is the same, as is the DNA of the radio station. Sport, rock, sport, comedy, NRL in the northern states, AFL in the southern states. And, you know, each will sound slightly different, but each is also parochial. And out of necessity, to be a hyper-local and relevant radio station, you need to reflect what's happening in the market, and each market is different.
Eddie might be one of the keys to this next answer from you.
Sure.
How closely do the content people need to work with the advertisers these days? Because you've got to pay all those superstar salaries, haven't you?
Intrinsically linked. Absolutely. We spend an inordinate amount of our time working with sales and with what we call integration now. They call different things in different companies, but it's moving clients closer to content. Eddie will often pick up the phone as he walks through sales and speak to a client at random and say they need to be spending more money. And that pays off, and that's in every Triple M around the country. It pays off because there's a wait list now to be a partner on the hot breakfast. You know, the demand is so high. In fact, the demand on the Triple M network is high because we have that relationship with our clients and because we work so closely to not only integrate them into our content, but really understand what it is they're trying to achieve and sell that for them.
Speaking of sales, there's a lot going on in this sort of digital space at the moment at Southern Cross.
Is there? I wasn't across that. I'd rather be investing in digital than investing in a video store right now. Put it that way.
You know, in terms of how much that's being used right now and listened to by listeners right now, or is it more about a future sort of investment?
Do you mean DAB Plus as a broadcast medium, digital radio?
Yeah, and both, and the iPhone apps and stuff like that. I mean, is there a big demand for that stuff now, or is it somewhere you need to be in 5 years' time?
Oh no, we need to be. People are there now. Like, if you don't have a digital strategy as a radio company now, then you don't have a strategy, or any media company really. And you see it on television with the streaming services and the on-demand services. So every good radio company should have a digital strategy. Ours is sound. We've just had a fantastic appointment to replace Clive Dickens, who headed up our digital end for the last few years, Vijay Solanki. And Vijay started a few weeks ago, and we've got some really exciting prospects happening digitally over the next 12 months. But for Triple M, again, it's about going back to our DNA and improving what we do in the rock, specifically in the sport area and in comedy. But our online, our unique visitors or unique browsers or whatever we call them these days have grown 100% in the last 12 months. 1 million unique browsers a month for the Triple M network. And in terms of digital radio, DAB+, more and more people are discovering digital radio. But being able to stream digital radio, being able to stream your favourite radio station, I believe is of utmost importance. And
you've got a new CEO coming in very shortly.
We do.
What's the talk like in the offices around it?
Yeah, we're really excited. I mean, I don't know Grant personally, but I spoke to him the day after his appointment was announced. I know he's spoken to Guy, our head of Metro, and he's spoken to Eddie, and we're all really excited to have an executive, a media executive of Grant's calibre and experience coming into the company to take us forward. It's just a really exciting time, I think.
All right, Mike, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us on the show. Head of Triple M there, Mike Fitzpatrick. We are going to move on and switch gears to television now. We're actually just hearing a little bit about that, but a lot of discussion this week about the free-to-air TV model with a lot of these streaming services coming online, whether it can continue to grow or is it nearing the end of the sector as we know it? Well, for a check-in on the media sector's performance on the share market this week, we're joined by Evan Lucas from IG. Evan, good afternoon. Of course, it's been all about Nine Network this week. It's been in focus after its downgrade. How's the share price been responding since?
Not too well, to be honest with you, Ingrid. The other thing is the leaching into the rest of the media space on the back of it. It was a big downgrade to the EBITDA expectations. 311 was what they announced at their AGM. It's been moved down to 280 to 290. Now, that is a substantial change in terms of what they're looking at. Is a substantial change in the earnings space that you've got. And you've just been talking about it, obviously, with Mike himself with regards to that digital focus and where that heads. And, you know, something like Seven West Media has been at pains all week to basically say, no, we are basically on track, along with Fairfax as well, I've noticed. But all three of those names I just mentioned have seen up to 12% off since they've basically seen that announcement coming out from Nine earlier in the week, and it's really leaked through. The concern is, and the biggest issue is, that we are now seeing a structural change with regards to ad dollars and how they look. Free-to-air is no longer just the only place to really be putting your big end dollars into, and that has been seen in social media. It's been seen into the digital space, and particularly those on-demand spaces. So what we now want to see is how is Stan going inside Nine? How is Presto going for Seven? And then obviously the big one is when Netflix actually tells you how their Oz division has moved, and that really feeds across it, because the biggest one to sort of look at was what happened out of Goldman Sachs. They downgraded the entire media space this week to either neutral or underweight on the back of the fact that the whole structural setup of ad marketing and ad dollars in Australia is changing, probably for the worse for those players that are in the space. And
you mentioned Seven West. Despite it, reaffirming its guidance, it still seems out of favour with investors. Why is that?
Yeah, it is, and quite substantially. It's one of the worst hit. I mean, initially the reaction from Nine was 13.5%. It's sort of steadied, but Seven lost as much as 10%. It's recuperated a little bit of it, but since then it's also been losing. It's around the paper structure and how their paper division is. There's always been that concern over debt, and even Seven is starting to see leaching issues as well. Their viewership numbers possibly under a little bit of a cloud, considering expectations are that maybe 10 is going to see a 2% increase, and that again just adds that question around whether or not long-term forecasts are actually going to be met, and the ad revenue dollars that they expect is going to come back into their coffers. So that is why Seven's under pressure. There is still questions to be asked. Yes, FY15 looks like being held. The question will be FY16, and that's where they do see pressure. Back half of a calendar year is when Seven tends to sort of lose time to Nine, and that's probably where questions are being asked from a share point of view.
All right, Evan, thank you so much for that, as always.
Thanks, Nick.
Evan Lucas there from IG. Back to James Manning now for more on that, because there has been a lot of discussion this week about the free-to-air TV model, James, and, potentially is it dying? And obviously we were just hearing from Mike about the sort of things that they need to be undertaking in order to keep up. Yeah. What do you think, with the Nine downgrade this week, Seven West, it obviously came out and reaffirmed its guidance, but there's still a lot of questions around it.
Well, look, there's still good money to be made there if you get your costs right.
Yeah.
I think, there's nothing wrong with earning $200 million a year, which Seven's going to do, Yeah. So it's still a good business. Ten's got some challenges. They're working through them. I think they'll get there. We've been reporting all this year about their improvements, how they're performing a lot better. We'll see some of that money flowing back to them next year in ad revenue, I think. Nine, the downgrade. But look, they've been raising some cash. They've sold off a lot of the stuff. The Bauer Media, $500 million. The Nine Live, I think it was up $600 million.
And reportedly the CEO is selling off some shares too.
yeah. It didn't come at a great time, I guess, did it? But I think we'll see what happens about that in the end. But I think there's still, they're investing lots of other things. Seven are investing in. They want to be a producer to the whole world. They've got a production company in the US, one in the UK. They've had some good commissions this week. They're investing in a lot of new specialist sports, which I think will do well for them long term.
It's all about sport, isn't it? Seven West Media getting the okay from Racing Victoria for its free-to-air coverage. Where might that show, Seven?
I think they'll probably put it on digital. They're doing a lot of stuff in HBB TV. We've been talking about that in the past. We might see them using that, and we could see a specialist digital racing channel.
All right, we might take a quick break here on Mediaweek, but coming up next, we'll talk more changes at the top of Southern Cross Stereo's today's hit network, plus how Apple's announcements this week are impacting media owners. That's next.